Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Margaret. I'm from Ohio, and if there's one thing life has taught me, it's this: respect doesn't come from money, beauty, or status, it comes from how you treat people when no one's watching. I believed that my whole life. I lived it. I raised my son on that principle. But nothing could have prepared me for the day my daughter-in-law, the woman he swore was the love of his life, stood in front of 100 people at her wedding reception and shamed me so viciously, so mercilessly, that I thought my knees would give out right there. And the worst part? Everyone just sat there, watching, until one man finally stood up and revealed a truth that silenced the entire room. "Are you seriously wearing that to my wedding?" Those were her first words to me the moment I stepped into the hall. Her voice was sharp, high-pitched, meant for everyone nearby to hear. Heads turned. Glasses clinked against plates. I froze at the entrance, holding the small clutch I'd saved up to buy, wearing the one formal dress I owned. She looked me up and down, her lip curling in disgust. "Oh my God, you're embarrassing us. Don't you have anything decent? This isn't some church picnic, it's my wedding." The words sliced through me like knives. I swallowed hard, heat rushing to my face. "Emily," I whispered, forcing a smile, "this is the nicest dress I own. I wanted to look my best for you." But she didn't lower her voice. She threw her hands dramatically into the air, as if I'd committed some kind of crime. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. My friends are out there, my colleagues, my family, and then you show up looking like a charity case." Gasps rippled through the room. Some people chuckled. Others whispered. I could feel every eye drilling into me. My chest tightened. I wanted to shrink into the floor. But before I could respond, Emily took a step closer, her perfume sharp, her glare sharper. "You had months to prepare for this, Margaret. Months. And you couldn't even bother to rent something? Borrow something? I don't know, make an effort?" She sneered, then added the cruelest blow, "No wonder your husband left you. You don't know the first thing about being presentable." The room went silent. My heart cracked in two. My husband had walked out on me years ago, leaving me to raise my son alone. It had been my deepest wound, my quietest pain, and she had just dragged it into the spotlight, ripping it open in front of everyone. Something inside me snapped. I straightened my shoulders, blinking back tears. "Emily," I said firmly, my voice trembling but loud enough to carry, "you will not talk to me like that. Not today. Not ever." Her laugh was cold, mocking. "Oh please. Don't act like you have any authority here. This is my wedding. My day. You're just the +1 guest who happens to share DNA with my husband." I opened my mouth to answer, but she stepped even closer, jabbing her manicured finger into my chest. "You're nothing but a burden to him. You should be grateful I even let you come. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't even feel guilty enough to invite you. Everyone knows you've been living off his kindness since forever." My hands shook. My lips trembled. I could feel the blood drain from my face. And then, I heard it. A chair screeching across the floor. Heavy footsteps. A man's voice booming over the chaos. "Enough." Every head turned. Emily froze. It was her father. A tall man, his face lined with age but his eyes blazing with something fierce. He walked forward, his presence commanding, his jaw tight. He looked at his daughter, his only daughter, with a disappointment so deep it cut the air in half. "Emily," he said slowly, his voice echoing against the walls, "you will stop this right now." Her mouth fell open. "Dad, what are you?" "Stop," he thundered, his hand slicing the air. "Do you have any idea what you've just done? Do you have any idea who this woman is?" The room was dead silent. My breath caught. My knees felt weak. Everyone stared as he turned toward me, his expression softening with something I hadn't seen in years, guilt. This woman, he continued, pointing to me with a hand that shook ever so slightly, is the reason you're standing here today. Without her sacrifices, without her strength, without her, his voice cracked, and he paused, swallowing hard, without her, you wouldn't even be alive to walk down that aisle. Gasps again. Whispers. I stood frozen, my mind spinning. What was he saying? What truth was about to come out? Emily blinked, confusion clouding her anger. Dad, what are you talking about? He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, then faced her again. His voice dropped, lower now, but filled with sorrow. You don't know the story. You don't know the night I almost lost you. The night you stopped breathing. The night Margaret, his voice trembled, saved your life. My mouth opened, but no words came out. A shiver ran through me. That night. That secret. That truth I had carried for years. He was finally going to say it out loud. Emily's face went pale. The room buzzed with shock. And me? My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Because in that moment, I knew, the truth was about to break everything open. The silence after her father's words was deafening. I stood there, clutching my little clutch bag against my chest, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could see it through the thin fabric of my dress. Emily's jaw was still hanging open, her cheeks flushed not from embarrassment, but from confusion and disbelief. She turned toward him, shaking her head, her eyes narrowing like a spoiled child being scolded in front of her classmates. Dad, she snapped, her voice rising again, what are you even talking about? You're making no sense. Why are you defending her? She's not even family. She's... Enough, he boomed again, and this time the word carried so much weight, the glasses on the nearest table trembled slightly. He stepped closer to her, and I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years, fear. Not of me, not of her, but of the memory he was about to drag back into the light. His hand trembled as he ran it through his gray hair, his voice cracking ever so slightly when he spoke again. You don't remember. Of course you don't. You were just a child, barely 2 years old. But I remember every second. Every agonizing second of the night I thought I was going to lose you. The guests, who had been shifting uncomfortably in their seats moments earlier, now leaned forward. The laughter had died. The whispers faded. It was as if the entire hall was holding its breath. My own lungs felt tight. Because I remembered too. I remembered that night more vividly than I wished to. And I had prayed, for years, that it would stay buried. Emily's lip curled, dismissive, almost mocking. What night? You're making up stories now just to. Her father slammed his palm down on the table nearest to him. The sharp crack echoed through the room like a gunshot. Emily jumped back, startled. Don't you dare accuse me of lying, young lady, he roared. If you knew the truth, you'd be ashamed of every single word you just spat at this woman. I closed my eyes. My throat tightened. I didn't want it said. I didn't want it dragged out in front of everyone like this. But there was no stopping it now. His eyes flicked to me, and I saw the question there, should I? Can I? And in that split second, I gave the faintest nod. Because the truth had claws of its own. He turned back to her, lowering his voice, though it was still loud enough for everyone to hear. You were 2 years old. Do you know what happened? You swallowed something. A marble, maybe, or a bead. It lodged in your throat. Your mother panicked, screaming, useless. I froze. I didn't know what to do. You were turning blue in my arms. His voice cracked as he said the words, his face contorting with the memory. Emily blinked, her bravado faltering for the first time. What? You were dying, he said, his voice breaking into raw, unfiltered pain. My baby girl was dying, and I was helpless. Until Margaret ran in. Every eye shifted to me. I felt the weight of their stares, heavy. And suffocating. I shook my head slightly, my lips pressed together, as if trying to tell him silently, "Please stop, don't put this on me." But he continued, unstoppable now. "She didn't hesitate," he said. "She grabbed you out of my arms, turned you upside down, and with one strike to your back, you coughed it out. You gasped. You cried. And you lived. You lived because she knew what to do when I didn't." His voice dropped, raw with shame. "She saved your life, Emily. She saved you when even your own father could not." A stunned silence swallowed the room whole. Emily staggered back a step. Her eyes darted from him to me, then to the crowd, as if searching for someone to laugh, to dismiss it all as a dramatic lie. But no one laughed. No one whispered now. They all just stared, waiting for her to respond. And me? I stood frozen. My hands trembled against the clutch, my throat aching with the weight of words I wanted to say but couldn't find. Because that night wasn't just about saving a child. That night had changed my life too. That night had tied me forever to a family that later pretended I didn't matter. And hearing him finally admit it, after all these years, it broke something open inside me. Emily shook her head violently. No. No, you're just saying that to make me feel guilty. This is ridiculous. Why would she have even been there? Why would she? And that's when he said the part that made the crowd gasp louder than ever. Because, he said slowly, each word like a hammer striking stone, she was the only one who showed up when your mother and I couldn't handle life. When your mother locked herself in her room and I drowned myself in whiskey, Margaret was the neighbor who came every night to feed you, to bathe you, to rock you to sleep. She raised you when your own parents couldn't. You wouldn't even know your alphabet if it weren't for her. Emily's face turned white. She stumbled back against the table, gripping it as though her knees might give out. Her eyes darted around, frantic, panicked. No, that's not true. Mom always said she was just some lady from across the street. Some charity case she felt sorry for. His eyes filled with rage, his voice thundered. No. That's the lie we told you because your mother couldn't stand the shame of it. The shame of being too drunk, too broken, too selfish to raise her own daughter. Margaret filled the role your mother abandoned. She was there when no one else was. A murmur ran through the room. People exchanged shocked looks, their eyes darting from Emily's father to me, from me to Emily. And I knew what they were all thinking. How could she treat me this way after everything? But Emily, she wasn't done fighting. Her pride was too thick, her ego too swollen. She straightened, her hands balled into fists, her voice shaking with fury. You expect me to believe this garbage? That this woman who can't even dress herself properly, was somehow the savior of my childhood? You're humiliating me in front of everyone. Her father's voice dropped low, but it was sharp enough to slice the air in two. No, Emily. You humiliated yourself. And one day, when you finally learn the value of humility, maybe you'll understand the gift you were given. A gift you've been spitting on ever since you opened your mouth tonight. I could barely breathe. My son, my sweet boy, stood off to the side, pale and silent, torn between his wife and his mother. His eyes were glassy, his lips pressed tightly together, as if holding back a storm of words. I wanted to reach for him, to tell him it was okay, but I couldn't move. Not when the truth was still unraveling, spilling across the room like broken glass. Because this was only the beginning. This wasn't just about a wedding dress. Or a cruel insult. Or even about a childhood memory. This was about everything that had been buried, everything I had sacrificed in silence, everything that had been taken from me. And standing there, under the glare of 100 eyes, I realized, maybe it was finally time for my voice to be heard. When her father's words hung in the air, I felt the weight of my past pressing against my chest, urging me to speak, to finally tell my side of the story. But my voice caught. It's not easy to unwrap years of silence, to dig open scars you've trained yourself to cover. And yet, as I stood there staring at my daughter-in-law's pale, trembling face, the memories came rushing back like a flood I couldn't hold back anymore. I was 24 when my husband left me. 24, with a baby boy in my arms and a world that suddenly felt 10 times heavier. He didn't say goodbye. He just packed a bag one morning and never walked back through the door. Bills piled up on the counter. My son's cries echoed through the night, and I would sit on the kitchen floor, rocking him, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. That I'd take care of him. That I'd find a way. That he'd never feel abandoned the way I did. We lived in a small, peeling house on the edge of town. The kind of place where the walls groaned when the wind picked up, and the heater only worked when it wanted to. But it was ours. And for me, that was enough, until the night I met Emily. It was raining, hard, the kind of storm that rattles windows and seeps into your bones. I had just put my son down when I heard screaming outside. At first I thought it was drunken laughter, our street was known for its rowdy nights, but then I realized it was a child. A child crying, sharp, panicked. I ran to the porch and there she was. A tiny girl in soaked pajamas, barefoot, clutching a stuffed bunny that was almost bigger than she was. Her face was red, her hair plastered to her head. She couldn't have been more than 2. I rushed to her, kneeling in the mud. "Sweetheart, where's your mommy? Where's your daddy?" But all she could do was sob, pointing toward the house across the street. That house. The one I'd always avoided. The one with the loud arguments and shattered bottles on the porch. The one where the lights flickered at odd hours and strangers came and went too often. I scooped her up, her little arms clinging to my neck like she was drowning. I crossed the street, banged on the door, shouted until someone answered. When it finally opened, her father stood there, his eyes bloodshot, his shirt stained. He froze when he saw me holding her. For a moment, he looked like a boy caught stealing. Then shame washed over him, and he muttered, "Thanks," like it was a word dragged out of his throat against his will. That was the first night. But it wasn't the last. Soon, it became routine. Emily would wander into my yard when her parents fought. Sometimes she'd be hungry, sometimes she'd just sit quietly, staring at my son in his crib. I started keeping extra snacks in the pantry, a spare blanket folded on the couch. And before I knew it, she wasn't just a neighbor's kid I kept an eye on, she was another child I was raising. I bathed her when she came to me dirty. I dressed her in hand-me-down, clothes I'd scrounged from thrift shops. I taught her nursery rhymes while my son giggled in his playpen. And at night, when her mother locked herself away and her father staggered out into the dark, I was the one who sang her to sleep. No one knew. Not really. People whispered, of course. They'd see me at the grocery store with 2 toddlers and assume I was running a daycare. They didn't know that most nights, I was running on 3 hours of sleep, because I was juggling 2 babies that weren't mine to juggle. And then came the night. The night her father spoke of. It was just after midnight. I remember because I had been folding laundry at the kitchen table, the hum of the old fridge filling the silence. Suddenly, I heard frantic banging at my door. I rushed to open it, and there he was, her father, wild-eyed, shaking, holding Emily in his arms. Her lips were blue. Her tiny chest heaving, then stopping. For one terrifying second, I thought she was already gone. He shoved her into my arms, stammering words I couldn't even make out. Panic swallowed me whole, but instinct took over. I turned her upside down, smacked her back, prayed harder than I'd ever prayed in my life. And then, mercifully, I heard it, the sharp cough, the gasp, the wail that filled the room like a miracle. She had swallowed a bead, one of those cheap plastic ones from her mother's broken necklace. And if I hadn't been there, if I hadn't acted when he froze, she wouldn't have made it. That night changed everything. From that moment on, he looked at me differently. Not as a neighbor, not as a poor single mother struggling to stay afloat, but as the person who had saved his daughter's life. For a while, he tried. He brought over bags of groceries when he could. He offered to fix my leaky roof. But shame is a heavy thing, and eventually, he slipped back into old habits. His wife drank more, fought harder, disappeared for days. And Emily, she clung to me tighter. By the time she turned 5, she called my house her other home. She knew where I kept the crayons, where I stored the cookies, which chair was hers at the kitchen table. And sometimes, late at night, when I'd tuck her in beside my son, she'd whisper, "I wish you were my mommy." Those words broke me every time. Because as much as I loved her, as much as I wanted to protect her, she wasn't mine. I sacrificed more than I can say. Money I didn't have went to feeding her, clothing her. Time I should have spent resting or working went into nurturing her. And in the process, my own boy, my sweet little boy, learned to share not just his toys, but his mother. He grew up watching me give half my heart to someone else's child. And though he never complained, I always wondered if deep down, he resented me for it. But Emily grew older. And with age came pride, distance, and eventually, forgetfulness. Her parents never told her the truth. They painted me as the poor neighbor who tagged along, the charity case they pitied. And she believed them. She swallowed their version of events like gospel. So by the time she was a teenager, she looked at me not as a second mother, not as the woman who kept her alive, but as someone beneath her. Someone to roll her eyes at. Someone to mock behind closed doors. I let it go. I told myself it didn't matter. That one day, when she was older, she'd remember. She'd understand. She'd come back and thank me. But years passed, and the distance grew wider. She went off to college, met my son there, and when he told me he was in love with her, my heart nearly stopped. All the memories, all the sacrifices, all the years I had poured into her life, it all came crashing back. And I wondered if fate was playing some cruel trick on me. And now here we were. On her wedding day. The girl I had once saved from death, once raised like my own, standing in front of 100 people, tearing me down like I was nothing. And maybe, to her, I was. But I knew better. And so did her father. Because truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface, no matter how deep you try to bury it. Emily's face twisted as her father's words hung in the air. She shook her head violently, her hands trembling, her voice high and brittle as glass. No. No, this is insane. You're making me look like a fool in front of everyone. She didn't raise me. She didn't save me. She's just trying to steal attention on my day. Her words stabbed at me, each one sharper than the last. My day. My day. As though the rest of us were props in her little performance. For years I had held my tongue, swallowed my pride, chosen silence instead of confrontation. But now, in that moment, I felt something inside me ignite. Maybe it was rage. Maybe it was exhaustion. Or maybe it was the voice of all those nights I sat alone, whispering to myself that someday, the truth would matter. I drew in a shaky breath, and for the first time I spoke, not in whispers, not in apologies, but loud enough for the whole hall to hear. Emily. My voice was steadier than I felt. You can call me poor. You can laugh at my dress. You can spit on everything I've done with my life. But don't you dare rewrite history to make yourself comfortable. Because I was there. Every single time your parents weren't, I was there. And you know what? I don't need anyone's permission to say that anymore. Her eyes widened, as though she'd never expected me to fight back. She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the chance. Years of silence spilled out like a dam breaking. You were 2 years old when I pulled you out of that storm, soaking wet, scared, with no one looking for you. I wrapped you in my son's blanket. I fed you when your fridge was empty. I stayed up nights holding you while your parents fought until dawn. Do you think I wanted recognition for it? Do you think I did it because I wanted applause? I paused, my chest heaving, tears stinging my eyes. No. I did it because you were a child. And children deserve love, even when their parents can't give it to them. The room was silent. Even the waiter stood frozen, trays in their hands. My son's eyes shimmered with tears he didn't try to hide. I wanted to look at him, but I couldn't tear my gaze from Emily. You stood here tonight and told me I was embarrassing you, I continued, my voice cracking. That I wasn't good enough to be at your wedding. That I didn't belong in this family. But tell me, Emily, where would you be if I hadn't belonged in your life back then? Where would you be if I had turned you away that night, if I had decided you weren't worth the trouble? Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For the first time, her bravado was slipping. Her cheeks burned red, her chest rising and falling rapidly. And I pressed on, because the words had waited too long to be spoken. You think I lived off my son's kindness? I spat, my voice sharper now. No. I lived off double shifts and calloused hands. I put food in your mouth when I'd barely had enough for my own boy. I stretched one paycheck to cover 2 children, and I never once regretted it. But don't you dare stand here and call me nothing. Don't you dare erase the truth of who I was in your life, just because it makes you uncomfortable in front of your friends. A murmur rippled through the crowd. People were shifting, nodding, exchanging glances. Some looked at Emily with pity, others with disgust. And then, for the first time since I'd started speaking, I turned to my son. He looked at me, his jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists at his sides. His eyes glistened. And in that moment, I knew, he had carried this truth too, buried in his heart, silent but never forgotten. Son, I said softly, my voice trembling now, I'm sorry. I know you had to share me all those years. I know you watched me give time and love to someone else's child, when you deserved every part of me. I only hope you understand why I did it. I couldn't watch her suffer. I couldn't turn her away. His chest rose and fell, and then he nodded, just once. That one gesture gave me the strength to face Emily again. She was trembling now, her fists clenched at her sides, her eyes darting between me and her father. Finally, she screamed, You're lying. You're just jealous. You never had anything, and now you're trying to take credit for my life, for everything I built. You think people will respect you if you play the savior? You think they'll pity you? Her words bounced off me this time. Because for the first time, I didn't feel like the poor woman in the corner of the room. I felt like the truth teller. And the truth had its own power. You can call me jealous, I said calmly, though my hands were still shaking. You can call me pathetic. But the one thing you can't call me is a liar. Because your father remembers. My son remembers. And deep down, if you search your heart, you remember too. You remember the nights you curled up in my lap. You remember the songs I sang when you were too afraid to sleep. You remember the woman who showed up when no one else did. And that woman was me. Her face twisted, her mouth trembling. For a moment, I thought I saw something crack in her, something fragile and childlike, the little girl I once held. But then she hardened again, lifting her chin defiantly, clinging to her pride like it was the only thing she had left. I don't need you, she hissed. I never needed you. And I never will. Her father slammed his fist against the table. That's enough, Emily. His voice thundered, shaking the walls. You may not want to admit it, but this woman deserves more respect than you've ever given her. You think this wedding makes you a grown woman? Grown women don't tear down the people who lifted them up. Grown women don't spit on the hands that once saved them. You have everything today, your gown, your husband, this life you claim to have built, but don't you forget who helped lay the first bricks of it when you were too small to lift anything yourself. Emily's lips quivered. For the first time, she looked small. Fragile. Almost cornered. She turned to the guests, as though seeking an ally, but all she found were cold stares and disappointed eyes. No one was laughing anymore. No one was whispering about my dress. They were whispering about her. I took a breath, steadying myself, and said the words I had been holding in for years. You don't have to love me, Emily. You don't even have to like me. But you will not erase me. Not from your story. Not from mine. And with that, I sat down. My hands trembled as I folded them in my lap, but my back was straight, my chin high. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't shrinking in someone else's shadow. Emily stood there, pale and shaking, her wedding dress shimmering under the lights. Her eyes darted to my son, desperate, pleading, but he didn't move. He didn't speak. His silence was louder than anything she could have imagined. And in that silence, I realized something important: this battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it anymore. Because I had finally spoken. And once the truth is spoken, it can't be buried again. The room didn't feel like a wedding hall anymore. The music had stopped, the laughter was gone, and all that remained was the heavy silence of 100 people watching a family tear itself apart. I sat there, my hands folded tightly in my lap, my pulse hammering in my ears. For the first time in years, I had spoken my truth. And though my body shook, I refused to let myself shrink. Not anymore. Emily stood frozen, her chest heaving, her face pale beneath layers of makeup. She looked at the guests, her bridesmaids, her colleagues, her friends, all of them staring at her, whispering behind manicured hands. The confidence she had worn like armor was cracking, piece by piece, and I saw panic in her eyes. And then, as if her pride couldn't bear the weight of silence, she snapped. "You're all fools if you believe this," she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls. "She's just trying to make herself look important. Do you really think a woman like her could have done all the things she's claiming? Look at her." She thrust her hand toward me, her voice dripping with venom. "She couldn't even afford a proper dress for today. She's pathetic. She's nothing. And I won't let her steal this moment from me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people shifted uncomfortably, others shook their heads. But I noticed something: no one laughed with her. No one clapped. No one came to her defense. The only sound was her own anger, ringing hollow in the silence. Her father's face turned scarlet, his jaw tightening as he stood. "Emily," he growled, "every word you speak right now digs you deeper into shame. If you can't respect Margaret for saving your life, then at least respect yourself enough to stop making a spectacle." But she wouldn't stop. She couldn't. Her pride wouldn't let her. "Why do you all keep siding with her?" she screamed. "She's not family. She's not blood. She's a parasite who latched onto us because she had nothing of her own. And now she's here, on my wedding day, trying to make herself the center of attention." My chest tightened. For a moment, I wanted to cry, to shrink back into myself, to let the words sink in like poison. But then I remembered all the years I had sacrificed, all the nights I had held her, all the meals I had skipped so she could eat. And something inside me hardened. I rose to my feet. My chair screeched against the floor, sharp and piercing in the silence. I looked her dead in the eye, and my voice came out steady, so steady it startled even me. "You want to talk about blood, Emily? About family?" I took a step closer, my hands trembling but my voice unshaken. "Then let's talk about what family really means. Family isn't just blood. Family is showing up when no one else will. Family is working double shifts so 2 children can eat instead of 1. Family is rocking a child to sleep when her parents are too busy destroying themselves to notice she's crying. That's family, Emily. And I did that for you." Her eyes widened, but I wasn't finished. "You think I had nothing of my own? You're wrong. I had my son. My sweet, innocent boy who should have had every ounce of my love. But because of you, he had to share it. Because of you, he grew up watching his mother pour half her heart into someone else's child. And you know what? He never once complained. He never once resented you. He shared me with you, Emily. He gave up pieces of his childhood so you could have something of yours. And this," I gestured around the hall, my voice breaking, "this is how you repay him? By humiliating his mother on the most important day of his life?" The crowd murmured, louder now, voices rising in agreement. I saw bridesmaids exchange uneasy glances, groomsmen shaking their heads. The tide was turning, and Emily knew it. She clenched her fists, her voice trembling with rage. Stop lying. Stop trying to make me feel guilty. You think people pity you because you played babysitter? You think that makes you some kind of saint? You didn't save me, you just wanted to play hero because your own life was pathetic. The words stung, but I didn't falter. Because if she wanted truth, I still had more to give. Truth I had carried for years. Truth no one had heard. I took another step forward, my voice softer now, but sharper for it. Do you want to know pathetic, Emily? Pathetic is selling your own wedding ring to buy formula for 2 babies instead of 1. Pathetic is skipping meals so 2 little bellies could go to bed full while mine went empty. Pathetic is working late into the night, scrubbing floors with blistered hands, just so you could have shoes on your feet when your parents didn't bother to buy them. Gasps filled the room again. I saw people's eyes widen, their hands covering their mouths. But I wasn't finished. And you want to know the most pathetic part of it all? I said, my voice trembling as tears finally slipped down my cheeks. It's that after all of it, after everything I gave, you stand here today, not with gratitude, not with respect, but with hate. That's pathetic, Emily. Not me. The silence that followed was crushing. My tears fell freely now, but I didn't hide them. I let them be seen. Because they weren't tears of weakness anymore, they were tears of release. Emily's face crumpled, but still she clung to pride like a lifeline. You're lying, she whispered, though her voice cracked, her eyes darting wildly as though searching for someone, anyone, to back her up. But no one did. Her bridesmaids looked down at the floor, shame written across their faces. Her colleagues whispered among themselves, their expressions cold. Even her own mother, sitting stiffly at the corner table, turned her face away, unable to meet her daughter's eyes. And then, my son moved. He stepped forward, his face pale, his eyes burning. He looked at his wife, then at me, then back at her. His jaw trembled as he spoke, his voice raw. She's not lying, Emily. She's never lied about this. Pain you carried. But I can thank you now, before all these witnesses, for what you did. You may not be blood, but you are family. You are a mother in ways that go beyond biology. And for that, I will never again let your sacrifices go unnamed. Tears pricked my eyes, but this time they were warm, not heavy. For so long, I had been invisible. And now, in the one place Emily had tried to erase me, I had been seen. Truly seen. The guests erupted in applause, not for the bride, not for the groom, but for truth itself. For a moment, the hall felt alive again, but with something deeper than celebration, respect. Emily buried her face in her hands, sobbing harder now. And though a part of me ached for her, another part whispered, this is the lesson she needed. Whether she learns it or not is up to her. My son turned to his bride, his jaw clenched, his eyes heavy with disappointment. Emily, he said softly, but firmly, I married you today because I believed in us. I believed in the life we could build together. But if this, he gestured toward me, toward the wreckage of words that had filled the room, is who you really are, then I need to know. Because I will not build a home with someone who tears down the very person who built mine. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Emily looked up, her face desperate. I can change, she choked out. I can, please, I was scared. I didn't want to be overshadowed. I wanted this day to be mine. My son's voice cracked, but he did not bend. Then you don't understand marriage. Because if you can't share joy, if you can't share respect, then what are we even building? Her tears spilled again, but no words came. And then, for the first time all night, I stepped back. This was no longer my battle. My son had found his voice. My truth had been spoken. And whatever came next was theirs to face. I took a slow breath, then turned toward the crowd. My voice, though quiet, cut through the murmurs. Let this be the lesson of tonight, that silence does not mean absence. That sacrifice does not mean weakness. And that the people who love you in the shadows often give more than those who demand the spotlight. Do not forget them. Do not erase them. Because without them, you might not be standing where you are. A hush fell again. And then, applause. Not hesitant this time, but strong, steady, echoing against the walls. I didn't stay much longer after that. I had no desire to watch the rest unravel. Whether the marriage survived, whether Emily changed, whether my son forgave, those were not questions for me to answer. My part was done. My truth had been spoken. As I walked toward the exit, the crowd parted for me. Guests touched my arm, whispered words of thanks, nodded with respect. Some even had tears in their eyes. For the first time in my life, I felt something powerful, something stronger than pride, stronger than resentment. I felt free. And as I stepped into the cool night air, the muffled sound of the hall fading behind me, I knew this much. I had spent my life giving pieces of myself away. But tonight, I had taken something back. Not vengeance. Not triumph. But dignity. And that was worth more than any applause, any celebration, any wedding. Because at the end of it all, I walked away with what Emily had never managed to hold on to. The truth.